Welcome to our channel. Enjoy the video.
Christmas Eve, 1945. In the small town of Fayetteville, West Virginia, the Sodder family was preparing for Christmas like millions of other American families. Inside their two-story home, George and Jenny Sodder were surrounded by their children. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, one filled with Christmas anticipation, family, and the promise of another morning together. But sometime after midnight, that ordinary night became a nightmare. A fire suddenly erupted inside the house. George and Jenny were awakened by the flames and smoke. They managed to escape with several of their children. But 5 children were still believed to be upstairs: Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. George desperately tried to get back inside. But the fire was spreading too quickly. He attempted to reach the children through the windows. He tried to use ladders to climb toward the upper floors. But the ladders were reportedly nowhere they were supposed to be. Then George tried to move one of his trucks to reach the children from outside. It wouldn't start. The family was trapped outside as their home was consumed by flames. They called for help, but another disturbing problem emerged. The family's telephone line had been cut. By the time firefighters arrived, the house was already engulfed. There was nothing George could do. By morning, the Sodder home had been reduced to ruins. Everyone assumed the 5 missing children had died inside. But when the family began searching through what remained of the house, they expected to find something, anything, that could confirm what had happened. Instead, they found something that would haunt the family for decades. There were no clearly identifiable remains of the 5 children. And suddenly, the story of a tragic Christmas fire became something much darker. Because if those children had really died inside that house, where were their bodies? At first, the Sodder family had every reason to believe the worst. 5 children were missing. Their home was gone. And the fire had been devastating. But as the family tried to understand what had happened that night, questions began piling up. Why had the telephone line been cut? Why had the family's vehicles reportedly failed when George needed them most? And why did the circumstances surrounding the fire seem so strange? George and Jenny could not accept that the story ended with the flames. They began looking closely at everything that had happened before, during, and after the fire. According to later accounts from the family, there were reports of suspicious activity around the house that night. There were also reports of people claiming to have seen the children after the fire. None of these reports could definitively prove that the children had survived. But to the Sodders, they were enough to keep one terrifying possibility alive. What if the children hadn't died in the fire? What if someone had taken them? The family's suspicions grew stronger. And instead of allowing the case to disappear, George and Jenny began a decades-long campaign to find their children. They eventually placed a large billboard near their home. 5 photographs stared back at passing motorists. 5 missing children. And beneath them was a simple question: what happened to our children? The billboard became a haunting symbol of the family's search. But then, years after the fire, something arrived that would transform their suspicion into something even more disturbing. A photograph. It appeared to show one of the missing Sodder children. And if the photograph was genuine, then the 5 children may never have been inside that burning house at all. For years, the Sodder family searched for answers. They refused to believe that 5 children had simply disappeared into the flames without leaving a trace. Then, one day, a strange envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a photograph. On the front was a young man. And to the Sodder family, there was something immediately familiar about his face. They believed the man looked remarkably similar to Louis Sodder, one of the 5 children who had supposedly died in the fire. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten message. It reportedly suggested that the man was Louis. For George and Jenny, this was not just another strange clue. It was potentially the evidence they had been waiting for. If the photograph really showed Lewis alive, then their entire understanding of that Christmas morning had to be reconsidered. Perhaps the children hadn't died in the fire. Perhaps someone had taken them. And perhaps the fire itself had been designed to hide what really happened. But there was a problem. The photograph could not conclusively prove that the man was Lewis. There was no verified identity. No confirmed location. No definitive evidence establishing where the photograph came from. It could have been genuine. It could have been a cruel hoax. Or it could have been the desperate hope of a family searching for a child they could never bring home. And that uncertainty became one of the most haunting aspects of the entire case. Because every possible explanation created another question. If the children died in the fire, why were their remains never conclusively identified? If they were kidnapped, who took them? And why? And if someone deliberately started the fire? What was the real purpose of burning the Sodder home? The family never received a definitive answer. Instead, the mystery followed them for decades. And the longer they searched, the more the story seemed to move further away from a simple explanation. But eventually, another discovery would appear. One that would raise a chilling possibility. What if the 5 children had not disappeared on Christmas morning at all? The Sodder family never stopped searching. Years passed. Then decades. But the question remained the same. What happened to the 5 children? George and Jenny continued to believe that the fire might have been more than a tragic accident. The mysterious circumstances surrounding that night, the damaged telephone line, the reported problems with the family's vehicles, and the absence of conclusively identified remains, kept their suspicions alive. Then came the sightings. Over the years, people claimed they had seen children resembling the missing Sodder siblings. Some reports placed them in distant locations. Others suggested the children may have been taken away from West Virginia. But none of these sightings could be independently confirmed. And that was the problem with the entire case. Every clue seemed to open another door. But behind every door was another question. Even the famous photograph believed by the family to show Lewis could not provide a definitive answer. Was it really him? Or was the resemblance simply the product of a grieving family's desperate hope? The possibility of kidnapping remained. So did the possibility that the children had died in the fire. And there was another possibility that could never be completely dismissed. That the mystery had grown over the years as memories faded, stories changed, and unanswered questions became intertwined with speculation. But for the Sodder family, uncertainty was almost impossible to live with. They had no confirmed graves. No definitive remains. No explanation they could accept. Instead, they had photographs of 5 children who seemed to disappear from the world on one of the most recognizable nights of the year. Christmas Eve. The family's search eventually became a national mystery. Their billboard stood for years, carrying the faces of the missing children to anyone passing by. 5 faces. 5 names. 5 unanswered stories. And perhaps the most disturbing part was not simply that the children disappeared. It was that nobody could prove exactly how. The fire destroyed the house. But it never destroyed the questions. And even decades later, the Sodder children remained suspended between 2 possibilities. Were they victims of a terrible fire? Or did they survive that night, only to disappear into a mystery that would never be solved?
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. See you in the next one.